Apex let me take part in an early press event for Season 17 and revealed some major changes coming to the new season. This isn't sponsored, but I will be talking about all of these new changes EA told us about in detail today. Let's start with the stuff you probably haven't heard about, like the new survival item, the portable redeploy balloon. This new survival item will be lootable and will take the same slot as the mobile respawn beacon and the heat shield. You can use this to place a redeploy balloon anywhere on the map at any time. This will give your team the chance to reposition quickly and take some power off of the repositioning legends and allow those without such abilities to reposition too. The balloon will have a cooldown timer before it is destroyed, and it can also be shot down, but it will take a lot of work from a coordinated team to destroy it. Besides that, it just works like any ordinary redeploy balloon. We've also got a brand new progression system called Weapon Mastery. This system is super exciting to me because it will finally give me and you guys something to progress through as we play. Essentially, every weapon in Apex Legends will now have a level. When using each weapon in the game, you'll get weapon XP for kills, knocks, headshots, and overall damage. After every 20 levels, each weapon will have a trial for you to complete. This is sort of like an extra challenge. Once completed, that trial will give you some kind of reward. So basically, every weapon in the game will have 100 levels, 5 trials, and 5 rewards associated with them. And you can keep leveling the weapon and choose to complete the trials whenever you want to. Some of the easier trials they showed included things like downing a player from 25 meters away, or down at least 2 enemies with hipfire without releasing the trigger. They didn't really show what other more difficult trials were, but the dev talking about it said he can't wait to see people attempt the 360 no-scope Kraber trial. Not sure if that was a joke or if it's really a thing, but it sounds pretty fun. The rewards aren't super massive. It seems you get charms, load screens, legendary banner frames, and trackers for each weapon. So you could have a tracker on your banner that shows how many Kraber kills you have. The final reward is a guaranteed legendary skin for that weapon. There's no new skins, but you are guaranteed a legendary weapon skin. There will also be a new badge for every weapon that displays your weapon level on it. So basically a bunch of new weapon-based cosmetics going into this new season for your banner. Next season, we'll also get a new ping wheel upgrade. This ping wheel will give you more quick communication options. The new default ping wheel will have 3 new options: avoid, enemy audio, and regroup. So you can use those to sort of communicate with a bit more context now without having to say anything in game. When you're downed, you'll also have some really useful new options. There's options for do not revive, help, enemy reviving, and enemy healing. This way you can ping to your team some information that's really useful and kind of give them information on when and when not to revive you instead of just spam pinging help. Next up, we've got a massive new firing change update to talk about. There is now a much larger area for targets and dummies. You can also choose to let the dummies fight back now. There's an entire town at the back of the firing range with buildings, doors, and the kind of environments you'd expect in real Apex matches, so you can have more productive 1v1s with your friends. They've added an entire dueling pit too, with tons of sandstone blocks if you just want fast-paced fights still, and I don't know if this is the case, but they showed a screenshot and there was like a death box next to it, and I feel like this is like a quick loot system, so you can quickly loot up without having to go back to the starting area to change your weapons. Could be wrong though, not quite sure. They've also added an entire movement area where you can practice all sorts of movement tech, from zipline jumps to mantle jumps, super glides, and everything in between. This to me makes it very clear the Apex devs have accepted that high-level movement is a part of what makes Apex special, and them leaning into it with an entire movement area in the firing range is super exciting to see. You can also now join your friends in progress in the firing range, so you don't have to back out anymore to get a friend in, which is pretty good. Now it's time to talk about World's Edge, the map to receive the update treatment this season. The biggest change has to be in Fragment. Thankfully, they didn't want to destroy it. Instead, they've made big changes, but still kept some of the iconic parts of it. We've also got a new PRY called Stacks, which will replace Lava City, and they added a new vault in Skyhook. Trials has had some small changes, and the skybox and lighting has changed as well. They've removed all of the pits of lava. They're still there, but you won't float into them anymore. Instead, you can walk through them. There'll be extra bridges and different ways to traverse through the map. So let's talk more about those specific new PRI changes. Fragment has been renamed Monument. The west side is mostly the same, but massive changes were made to the east side. It feels like a much larger POI, and they've removed the construction building. Thankfully, they did place it somewhere else in the map, and I'll get into that in a minute. So the new Monument POI has a much larger play area on the side towards Epicenter. There are more buildings and areas to fight in. On top of that, the central building in this place is a museum, which has a fighting area above, and then underground houses an entire literal museum filled to the brim with the history of Apex Legends. There'll be tons of Easter eggs and lore features down here, as well as a gift shop, which the devs kept telling us to go and visit. So maybe there'll be some kind of free gifts, like a free charm or something there. Whatever it is, the devs feel super proud about this place. It's like a look back at the history of Apex and how it's evolved, and the story of the games and the legends and what brought us here today. So expect an absolute bonanza of Easter eggs and lore here. So let's next talk about construction building. This is an infamous building in Apex at this point, and it's still there, it's just moved to Stacks, which is the new POI that replaces Lava City. This new area is basically just a movement god heaven. I find it really interesting they took all the fun movement aspects and brought it to the edge of the map instead of in the center. Perhaps their hope is that all of the sort of hot droppers will land here instead and have to rotate into the map, instead of them landing Fragment and just never really leaving. There are some small changes to construction building. You've got more zip lines, and there's also some different construction areas to fight on and jump on, as well as a couple other buildings you can fight in Stacks. As this is considered World's Edge's health update, we can expect to see tons of small changes around the map as well, including changes to Harvester and other POIs. Because they've moved that whole sort of like falling in the lava and then floating back up aspect, in the middle of Harvester now, you have this small little area you can actually walk into to get some high tier loot, but everyone above you can kind of look down and shoot you very easily. So finally, we can now talk about Ballistic and his abilities. We already know a lot about his lore, so let's just talk specifically about how his abilities work in-game. Ballistic's passive is called Sling. It allows Ballistic to carry a third weapon that has no attachment. You can't put care package weapons in it or gold fully kitted weapons, and in TDM, any weapon you put into your sling will auto-convert to base weapon. So basically, it is a third non-attachment base weapon. But hear me out, it gets pretty exciting when you take a look at his other abilities in a minute. So Ballistic's tactical is called Whistler. It's a smart pistol that locks onto targets and tracks them when Ballistic aims it. If the target is hit, the target's gun will heat up, and when they use it, it kind of explodes and deals a bit of damage to the user. The weapon is usable again after overheating, just like the L-Star, and if the smart pistol misses the target, a small AoE effect will be there instead, and an enemy can walk into that and they'll get the same debuff. The overheat debuff lasts 12 seconds, so it's quite significant, but after that, the gun will go back to normal. One developer also mentioned that it's not the gun that gets debuffed, it's actually the player, so any weapons that they use will be unusable for those 12 seconds, or at least if they try and fire too much, it'll overheat and they'll take damage. There is one problem though, the devs did say it doesn't affect abilities, so Rampart's turret prevails yet again. Ballistic's ultimate is where things get quite interesting. It's called Tempest. He activates his backpack, and nearby enemies and himself will get faster reloads, infinite ammo during the duration of the ult, and faster armed movement speed. So think about like Mad Maggie's passive but applied to all weapons. During the ultimate time, Ballistic's sling weapon is upgraded to the gold tier version. So, you know, we talked about how the sling weapon can't have any attachments. When it upgrades during the ultimate, it's basically got the highest tier attachments possible. So if, for example, Ballistic picked up a Havoc to put in his sling, when he activates the ultimate, he'll have an infinite ammo, fast reloading Havoc to use until the ult runs out. If you want to catch Season 17 gameplay as soon as it goes live, make sure to click this live video here and click notify me so you don't miss the action. Cheerio!